The IMF has just published its economic outlook for Europe. I'm here with Antonio Borges, Director of the IMF's European Department, to discuss the outlook. Antonio, welcome.
Thank you.
So what is the IMF predicting for Europe this time around?
Well, I think the main message of the outlook is one of quiet confidence. Europe is doing well overall in general, both Western Europe and Eastern Europe, and this is very important to realize that overall our projections for the forthcoming months are actually quite positive. Some countries are doing very, very well, others are still growing modestly, and we're concerned with that.
Some of the countries in core Europe and in Scandinavia are doing particularly well, but their recovery is driven largely by exports. Do you see that continuing?
I think so. One of the most surprising elements of the outlook for Europe is indeed the export performance of some of the core countries. This is remarkable. Of course, this means that Europe is benefiting from the general growth that is taking place throughout the world. And this proves a very important point, which is that European integration is delivering efficiency gains that some countries are taking advantage of to become more competitive throughout Europe. Many European countries are now reorganizing their operations, using bases elsewhere in Europe to be more effective, more productive, and in that process becoming more competitive. I think this is very a source of strength. However, it is quite clear at the same time that there are big differences across Europe.
The IMF and the European Union have just announced a support package for Portugal. Do you think that the problems in Greece, Portugal and Ireland will continue to sort of threaten the recovery that's underway in the rest of the European Union at this point?
Well, of course, there's still uncertainty with respect to these countries. However, the situation is much better than a year ago, when there was a perception in general that that crisis could actually develop into a massive problem. There are programs underway. There is good chances that these programs will be successful, especially if they are implemented as they should, and therefore that we will not have contagion to the rest of the European economy. So I think we can hopefully expect that if things remain on track, we will be able to manage this crisis, which after all affects only a small number of relatively small countries.
There's still a lot of concern, though, about whether the debt levels of particularly Greece are sustainable. What's your take on that?
For all three countries where we have programs, the challenge is significant, is quite substantial. In Greece in particular, there are some reserves, if I can put it this way. The Greek government has plenty of assets which they can use to privatize or to leverage additional finance. So there are other elements that can be brought to bear. But there's no question that at this moment, 1 year after the program, we are in a certain sense at the worst moment in terms of having to bear all the cost of the adjustment without yet seeing the benefits in terms of economic growth in the immediate future.
Turning to a different part of Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, and there you have a strong recovery that's underway. Do you think that will be sustained in the future?
Most of the countries in Central and Eastern Europe are doing very well, and we're very pleased with that. We should keep in mind that some of them had very significant crises not that long ago, with very substantial adjustment required as a consequence, and those were successful programs. So in fact, it's a source of confidence what has happened in Eastern Europe in quite a few countries that have quickly recovered, and now overall the region is doing very well, to such a point that we're actually concerned that some countries may be growing too fast, and we are now changing our focus to stability as opposed to growth. So the signals we have from Central and Eastern Europe are positive, robust growth, rapid catch-up with respect to Western Europe, very encouraging overall.
Now, your report points to Europe's banking sector as still being a source of weakness. What is really needed to address Europe's weak banks?
This is an important point because it's, banks and the financial sector in general has been a source of concern throughout the world as a consequence of the financial crisis of 2008-2009. In other parts of the world, in the US and in Britain, banks have made more progress than they have on the continent of Europe. Europe has lagged behind to a certain extent, and that is a source of concern. And it is a source of concern because it need not be the case. I think it is possible and important to make some significant steps immediately. Banks need to be recapitalized. They need to have stronger balance sheets. This is possible to do. There's plenty of capital in Europe, and in fact, quite a few countries that have already gone down this road have proven successful. So this is where some decisive action is required.
Now, the main concern of the man or woman on the street in Europe is whether there'll be enough jobs in the future. What will it take to bring about a sustained reduction in the rate of unemployment, which remains high in many European countries?
Well, this is happening. Quite a few countries are now enjoying a significant boom. Germany, for example, has one of the lowest unemployment rates since a long, long time. So this is very positive and very encouraging. Actually, I should point out that the recent crisis in Europe actually showed an ability to deal with employment issues superior than what we've seen elsewhere, because the impact on unemployment was mitigated through several policies that actually helped the situation in a remarkable manner. I would imagine that with sustained economic growth as we expect, more jobs will be created. Now, this said, I don't want to underestimate the need to improve labor market, but overall the outlook remains positive, I think.
Your report highlights the need for further integration in Europe, both as a means to solve the current crisis and also to make Europe more resilient in the future. What are the key steps that Europe's policymakers should take today to make that happen?
The most interesting development in Europe is indeed this extraordinary effort to integrate economically and financially. And this is work in progress. And so we are developing solutions as we go along. And this is quite challenging, but at the same time very, very promising. Now, what we have discovered is that European monetary integration led to very, very big flows of credit going from one country to another, which led to all these booms and these bubbles, in particular real estate bubbles and so forth, which were a little bit or quite a bit out of control, if you want. What we need is, on the one hand, to master those developments a little better, but also to complement them with other flows of capital, in particular equity. So that's the next natural step. And if the equity markets also develop as the debt markets have developed in the last few years, we will have a more balanced, better integrated, more solid Europe.
Antonio, thank you very much for walking us through the new report that the IMF's just published on the outlook for Europe.
Thank you.